One piece that I would encourage everybody to listen to if you haven't is the original main theme for Final Fantasy VII. That piece, the structure for it and how it changes between keys and like does the tension and release it has a very unique structure. So that might give you some ideas.
A lot of my tracks, I end up with a cool idea, a riff, and I'll evolve it with instrumentation and maybe a few tweaks to the progression here and there, but it's still just a looping A riff throughout. I get the concept, you can go to ABA or ABC like with form, but I'm always second guessing myself. I'm never sure what form I should do, how it serves this track when I come out of a B. What does that look like? Just the theory, the big concepts rather around it, rather than the minute details of the theory. And I just love other people's takes on when you sit down to write a track. Do you have your form in mind already? Does that come as you go? What's kind of the thought process?
I do think that the context is always going to be very important. So if you've got a situation where you're like continuously building layers, then I think it's a lot more optimal to make it like smoother with using a similar progression. But the area of like pop songwriting that I come from is always thinking about the tension and release of it. So, if I'm doing a minute long loop that wouldn't have a ton of like complex implementation to it, like, I'm just thinking about like a Pokemon game or something. You're writing your minute long track for a Pokemon game. If I start on like let's say I start on like the minor 6 for the A section. So the A section is sort of in minor. Then I would try to like start at a different place for the B section. So I would like change up the chord progression, thinking about like melody cadence. Like if you've got a bunch of quick notes in the A section, maybe have more drawn out notes in the B section for the contrast. So, Jordan, you mentioned like not as much like the very like minor music theory things, but I think there's a lot of like minor things that you can pay attention to that can give that variance to a different section. What I see Steven doing a lot when he's doing the live composing show is like in the idea phase, like where he's first generating ideas, he'll often toss things just like later in the session as like a placeholder that lots of those things could end up being like a B section. So you may not even be like thinking specifically like, okay, I'm gonna write my A section, now I did that, now I'm gonna move on to the B section. You could like have generated enough ideas at the start that you could make both out of those. So that's something I see him doing a lot. The other thing I was going to mention is one piece that I would encourage everybody to listen to if you haven't is the original main theme for Final Fantasy VII. That piece, the structure for it and how it changes between keys and like does the tension and release it has a very unique structure. So that might give you some ideas.
Hey, if you liked that video and you'd like to check out more of what we do inside Video Game Music Alliance, I encourage you to check out our free case study. This is a quick guide that shows you how we helped one member increase his monthly revenue to $10,000 per month with video game music, and how you can too. So this is a little document that you can download and take a look at by just filling out your first name, last name, email, address, and we will send you that download right away for free. And as a bonus, you'll also get added onto our email list where you'll also get to check out lots of cool things like our upcoming live streams, our upcoming events, when we launch next, to come join the Video Game Music Alliance. So I hope that is helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next video.